I'm Jane Watkins here from Mirador Television in Lewes, and I'm out and about today in East Sussex. And today I'm in the Stables Theatre in Hastings Old Town. They're in the middle of rehearsing for a very groundbreaking production of Macbeth. So we're going to have a little chat to a couple of the actors and the chairman of the Stables Theatre. Come with me. I'm here with Matt, who is playing Macbeth, the main lead, in this very modern production of Macbeth at the Stables Theatre. Tell us a little bit about your history in theatre and drama. How did it all begin?
Well, I started quite young because my mum was a very keen Amdram person, and so I used to be on her hip when she was rehearsing. So I started when I was, I think, 8. I played young Macduff, in fact, when she was first witch in front of a fee-paying audience. And from that, I went into the Children's Music Theatre, National Youth Theatre, studied drama at drama school in Wales. And so, so I've kind of started very young.
Tell me a little bit about Australia, travelling around Australia.
Yes, I was over in Australia for on and off about 20 years. Latterly, I was with a Shakespeare company over in Australia for the last 6 years. I was there. We used to do open air Shakespeare in the parks around Sydney, and then Shakespeare for schools, touring around, well, Queensland, New South Wales, Australian Capital Territory. It's pretty big. So we used to fly in and then hire a car and then sort of go bush.
Yeah.
Because it's huge, and the country schools just never get a chance to see live theatre, especially Shakespeare. And they've got the same exams as the city kids. So, I mean, probably the best experience I had was doing it in front of a group of Aboriginal children who had English as a second language. So you had to learn sort of 400-year-old English, but we had a shortened version. It was about an hour 10, and then they have questions. And we really worried how it was going to go down. But at the end of the show, when I got killed at the end, sorry, it's a spoiler, the kids just charged the stage. They were so wrapped in it and thought it was so fantastic, and they wanted to put the crown on and hold the swords. And we were going, no, you can't hold the swords. But they just loved it. So I think it's such a great play for the story. It's very, very clear. If you're a bit frightened of Shakespeare, it's so clear that what is happening. There's goodies, there's baddies, there's murders. It's got everything. The easiest way to tell if somebody's with you is just the noise level from the audience. When it's quiet, it's because they're following the plot, and there was just silence throughout the whole time. So it was great. Traveling around country schools, the wages weren't great. You're doing it because, as I said, they had to do the same exams as the city kids, so they have disadvantage naturally. I think, although we all have to learn Shakespeare at school for GCSE, whatever, it often can put people off studying it in such great depth. I would say, if I was running the country, everybody should see a Shakespeare, probably Macbeth because it's most accessible, before before they're 16. And you're very reliant on the teacher, of course, being okay with it. So I think when you see it, you understand it. And I used to ask all the school kids, well, after they asked us questions, I'd say, can I ask you a couple of questions? And I would say, okay, who at the beginning when we started, for the first 10 minutes was going, oh my God, the language is a bit weird. But then after about 10 minutes, forgot about the language and were just following the story. Yeah. And there'd be a sea of hands go up. So it's down to the actor, of course. If you're doing it well, the people won't notice that the language is a bit weird.
So how did you get involved in this production?
I saw the audition notice. We've had, I haven't had any professional work while COVID's been rife. That all went on hold. So I was a bit worried about my brain rotting. And I played Macbeth before, and I thought, what a great opportunity. One, for friends to see me in something where they don't have to travel to London or Brighton, which is the usual routine, and to refresh my brain, get it working again, and and it's a challenge, Macbeth. This is the full show. I've not done the full show before, so yeah, it was a great challenge.
And what do you think about this modern production? It's a completely different slant with the projection behind you.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a dynamic. I mean, the whole the setting. It's sort of now when a time of when we're observed everywhere we go. There's cameras all on the streets and things like that. So it's very relevant for now. Beth, most of his mission once he is about control and keeping where he is, and well, that's what this is all about. All the cameras. That's part of our life now. Mechanically for us, the actors. That's behind us, so it's not too off-putting at all because we're sort of facing that way. So so to work with it, it's no problem at all.
How are you coping with learning the lines?
They're all in there. We've got a few weeks. It's just whether they come out in the right order at the right time. So what's the Morecambe and Wise? I'm saying all the right words, not necessarily in the right place. No, I know they're okay. They're all in there. So
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
So, Mary, how did you get involved in theatre? What's your history in theatre and drama?
Yeah, I suppose I got into acting quite late, actually. It's something I'd always wanted to do, but I trained late. I trained professionally, but I was in my 30s, so a mature student. And I've sort of really just dabbled ever since then. Yeah, and got involved with the Stables Theatre probably about 6-7 years ago, and sort of kind of regard it as kind of a hobby now, but a very enjoyable one. The first one I did here was Anne Boleyn, and that was the first thing I'd done probably for about 15 years actually, and sort of got the bug again from that one. And then following that, did a few others, Pack of Lies, which a bit of a thriller. So very, very different to Anne Boleyn. And My Mother Said I Never Should, which is a fantastic play, and a bit of Agatha Christie as well, Witness for the Prosecution. So I like sort of very dramatic sort of plays, and so Macbeth is, perfect really, because it sort of explores all the different kind of emotional situations that people can find themselves in. So I find that really interesting. I also love comedy. I haven't actually done a comedy here, but sometime.
And what do you think of this modern version of Macbeth?
Really interesting, because the themes that are explored in Macbeth are timeless, really, and universal. It's about human nature and this sort of dark side of human nature is really kind of, there's a spotlight on that really. So I think it's something that people now can relate to, although the language is very different and obviously not everyone's used to that. It's still very relatable, the temptations, that sort of predicament of doing the right thing, or possibly not doing the right thing, when the route you're going down isn't sort of the right route. And there's that element of people pleasing and trying to do what you think is expected by another person, the pressures from different sort of quarters. Yeah, no, it's really sort of fascinating.
And how are you coping with learning the lines?
Oh, that's going okay, actually. Personally, I find, because of the rhythm that Shakespeare writes in, I actually find that easier to learn. I know that's possibly not the case for everybody, but it's written in such a rhythm that, for me, I learned through the rehearsal process mainly, through speaking the lines, and then I sort of go back over and hone the bits that I'm a bit sort of, unsure of. But generally speaking, it's gone well, I think. So I'm thoroughly enjoying the whole experience. So
great.
yeah,
Thank
looking
you very
forward
much
to it.
for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I'm here with Neil Selman, who is chairman of Stables Theatre in Hastings. Thank you very much for joining us today.
That's fine.
So, Neil, how have you coped with the challenges of COVID for the last 2 years?
Obviously, the main challenges are the obvious ones where we're completely locked down. But the challenges have given us really new opportunities. It's enabled the theatre to become a far more community-based theatre. That was basically because when lockdown first happened and the first restrictions were beginning to be eased, the only people that could rehearse, perform, to live stream were professional actors. So we were able to open the theatre to small professional groups within Hastings, which then combined it with our local groups that traditionally use the theatre. And what we've been able to do is to carry on with that relationship with local professional actors, and we've been lucky enough. Sort of our name is beginning to spread, so we're having people from London ask if they can come and perform their one-man shows or their one-woman shows, or their concert they put together during lockdown. So we've been lucky enough to have quite a few very well known West End names as well.
Has the Stables changed from being a members club and you're opening it out now to other productions? Has it completely changed in the last few years?
Yeah. Stables. It was all to do with the licenses and how the theatre was first set up. And we used to have a club license, and the club license used to mean that it was easier to get a bar license, to get performance licenses. And you used to have to be a member of the theatre for like 24 hours before you could buy a ticket, or 72 hours before you could buy a drink or anything like that. But we actually now, and it's been for quite a few years now, we've actually had a public performing license and a public bar license. So the theatre is far more sort of open to sort of everybody that sort of wants to use it. So we in the last 18 months we've gone from sort of basically doing sort of fairly standard plays to working with people with new writing. We've got a group of young people come in. We've got preschool groups in during the year. We've started to work with the local Alzheimer's group. They have a drop-in group. So hopefully we're making the theatre sort of a lot more accessible. We've got a group from the local LGBT community coming into to play later on in the year. They're using it as a sort of a first step on stage, as it were. So we're trying to make the space as welcoming and as safe as possible for them. So yeah, we're moving on. Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
What do you think of this very modern version of Macbeth?
It is extremely exciting. Yeah, the bits I've seen of it are, for the Stables, groundbreaking. It's going to be a production that I think will challenge audiences, which I think it was set for. And talking to Francis, who directed it, when Macbeth was first written, apparently it was actually written during a plague and was one of the first plays performed straight after the plague. And actually, I think its first resurrection was straight after another short plague in our history. So apparently it's something to do with the speed it can be learned, the shortness of the play, and the fact that it's actually sort of quite fiery and everybody can get their angst out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How do you think the audience will react to this version of Macbeth?
I think it will be very interesting. I hope an audience comes with an open mind. I think it will make them look and listen to the text completely differently to how it's been done before. Really would like to welcome schools and colleges, because I think there will be a lot for them to
It's good to see it on
to
stage,
get it.
isn't it? It
Yeah,
helps with the
yeah,
text, I think,
yeah,
when you're at
yeah,
school.
yeah,
don't
yeah.
Visualise it.
Yeah, and I think when something is done in a different style, it makes you question the text. And as I said, for people that are doing it for GCSEs or A levels, I think that's absolutely perfect. And I think for audiences, to understand the difference between live theatre and Netflix and iPlayer and Sky, there is a contract between the audience and the players on stage, and I think that is what we have to hang on to as live theatre to make it like a unique experience for people. That's why theatre is good, and that's why theatre is exciting, because it's live and you're part of it.
Thank you very much for your time today, and I wish you the very best for the production, and I hope that you have full audiences.
Yes, let's hope.
A friend once said to me, I think she was a friend, "You're some picture." I'm not sure if it was a compliment or not. But I am beginning to learn that there is more to art and pictures than meets the eye. To me, it would have been a bowl of fruit, and that I would have thought was a still life. Well, do you know something? I am learning like crazy, because Sarah Fitch-Hayes, who is sitting next to me, and now she is some picture, the Beauty and the Beast. But she is now enlightening me and educating me that the many facets of art are fascinating, and that they cover so many various things. And who would have thought that still life, when somebody said, "You look like a picture," could mean either they love me, they hate me, or they'll never forget me, because that's what Marmite does. And Sarah, you better tell us, Marmite is a still life.
Well, according to this, we have here.
Right.
The Marmite here we have.
My mate G Sextra, right? Okay, take over. Tell us what it's all about.
I shall, indeed. This is back to a childhood memory again from when I was a wee nipper, and my brother used to make Marmite sandwiches. And one day I took this bite out of this Marmite sandwich, and
You were hated.
At the time I absolutely loathed it. I couldn't stand it. Horrible stuff. And then one day, out of the blue, I thought I'd just try a bit on toast about 3 or 4 years later, and I ate it. And do you know what? There's no going back. I love it. I do actually love it now. So this is another childhood memory. It's hot off the press. This is still nice and sticky still from where I've just finished it off yesterday evening. But this is just where the glass bit is here. I've used lots of varnish to get that real shine, to shine its way through.
So this, when you say hot off the press, when did you paint this?
I literally started about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago, and I literally finished it yesterday evening.
Right.
So,
So that's 2 weeks. Something like this, would it take you 2 weeks to paint?
I could probably have it done in a week if I had more time, but because I had other projects going, I've had to sort of put this on the back burner, bring it back to the foreground, and deliver some more work to it. So I literally finished it yesterday evening, and the last touch was done with the varnish and the lid yesterday. So all is good.
Now, why do you look at things like that? Because I could look at Marmite and it would tell me many things, but it would never occur to me to paint it, or even for that matter, really, to photograph it. So why do you actually zero in on Coke bottles and Marmite yeast extract stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, naturally, I think everyone's childhood, they love to reminisce. You know, people, that's about life, isn't it? You love to reminisce.
Right.
So I think what my work is to do, the idea is for you to look at a painting, hang it on the wall and reminisce about it. And I think, you know, a friend of mine contacted me last night on Facebook. She goes, "How much are you selling that painting for?" And I said, I gave her a quote of the, you know, what it would be about the gallery price. And she turned around and said, "I want to buy it for the Breakfast Club." And I thought, what a wonderful idea. You could just see it in someone's kitchen, just hanging up there on the kitchen wall. Great.
And when they have breakfast.
Well, having breakfast and Marmite on toast, why not?
Well,
So,
I have to tell you that my breakfast is a croissant, a coffee, and a damn big brandy in it. Does that give you an idea?
Well, I could do a brandy coffee if you
Well,
want.
there we are. Now we're motoring into my realm.
Could do oyster and ice cream as well.
but actually, you see, it never occurs to me that somebody would look at Marmite and say, "This brings back memories of when I was a child," and so on. Of course, it's obvious, really, because I think about these things all the time. I mean, with me, it's ice cream. And I know why I'm so passionate about ice cream is because you couldn't get it in the early years of the war. I didn't have an ice cream until I was about 7.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
there
My
the
word.
youngsters now. So I'm passionate about ice cream, and any time that you actually paint ice cream, is I shall bow down in front of you and beg for a copy. I don't even care whether it's just a photograph, but I shall beg for a copy. but there are a whole range of things. There's even just sitting here, and I happen to mention that, and most of my friends and most of my enemies know that champagne and oysters are just one of those things which I just love. And you immediately saw oysters as something that you might paint. Now, tell me how that thought process comes.
I think the idea is something that you love. You're going to have it on your wall, right? And this is why I chose this. The thought process is like, I'm not going to do Marmite.
But you sold it.
Hmm?
You sold it. It's not. You're not going to reminisce about it. You sold it. You let it go.
That's my mate. That's what it's all about. He's my mate. I like him. I love him.
Yeah, but I mean, quite seriously, you paint something like this because it brings back memories and so on.
Absolutely.
But then somebody takes it away. How do you feel about that? This you only gave birth to this 2 weeks ago, and it's already been adopted. So when this disappears to somebody else, how do you feel about your paintings?
I do get very attached to my work.
Do you?
I get very attached, yeah. And when it sells, I'm like, I'm happy naturally because people appreciate my work. This is lovely. But when you let go, you're like, oh, but I can always recreate. You know, that's what it's all about. Reproduce it and do it to someone's, preference as well. So to me, it means a lot. When I sell something, there's two emotions. There's mixed emotions. 1 minute I'm feeling like, oh, I don't want it to go. But the next minute I'm just like, do you know what? They love it. So great.
I mean, is this true of the artistic community, that they get so close to their work? Or are there people that simply sort of paint, sell, paint, sell, paint,
Two sides.
sell?
I've met artists where they're hoarders. They can't let go of their work. They're like, I don't want to sell it. I'm not going to sell it. Then you hear other artists like, I can't believe I didn't sell that. And they get so upset. I mean, it's like when I did the tree show. I didn't make a sale, but the comments and the commentary and it is very hard to break into. And a friend of mine, funny enough, an old school friend, hadn't spoken to her for 30 years. She got in touch with me the other day and she said, "So I need your art advice. I'm thinking about breaking it into art." And I told her the home truth. I said, "Fiona, by all means, go for it. I'm not going to put you off, but it's very, very hard to break into. So as long as and I know she's quite a tough woman, so I think she'll give it a go." So I'm giving her all the encouragement now, and she's asking me all these art questions. What do I do? How do I do this? And it's a learning curve. Everything changes. Social media wasn't around when we were younger.
Oh, go on.
So I was like,
Go on. You're just a spring chicken.
But even in our generation, it's like social media. It's like, well, how do I do this? I'm on Instagram. I'm learning the ropes.
Well, I must say that I somewhere in my souvenirs, it is from about 50 years ago. My very first broadcast is tucked away, and I'll tell you, I'd love to lose it. I can't believe that I was so bad, and they let me on the air.
Let you loose.
I have no attraction to it whatsoever. It's one of those things is I can't lose it. It keeps on turning up in a box. Now, this whole range of things, because you've done Coke bottles and so on. I mean, is supposing that it was a bottle and it hadn't got Coke on it, would it have meant the same thing? Because
very true
Coke is a
point.
design, isn't it? That bottle is very carefully designed.
Well, it has that finesse, doesn't it? The shape
Yeah,
of the bottle
yeah.
is actually, if you look at the actual old-fashioned Coke bottles, they're beautiful, really beautifully made. You don't get that uniquity anymore, do you? Whereas if it's an empty bottle with a straw, I mean, the Coke adds the character because you've got all the bubbles going through. When you actually look at the straw, where it's dipped inside the Coke, you can just see the nice reflections of the straw, the bubbles sitting on the straw. I think it adds a real interest concept. So when we do talk about the Coke painting, you'll see, and I'll point at it and I'll show where all the bubbles are.
Yeah.
And it looks really fascinating.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
see,
look,
you're talking to a Philistine here, because I would look at it and say, "Oh, there's a Coke bottle there, yeah, very nice." And so on. So now, people who really appreciate your art, do they see what you just explained that you see in it when you paint it?
I think whenever somebody looks at a painting, they just make their own interpretation of it. And I think if you can relate to it, and I think this is why all this vintage theme that I do, I think it's magical. Let them think what they want to think, because that's what art's about, isn't it? It's what the expression of what that canvas displays. How do you perceive it? What do you see in it? So I think that's a very open question, definitely, for sure.
I know my reaction to this would be is,
I tell you what I'll do. I'll make you a nice Marmite flavoured ice cream. How does that go?
well, we'll have to have it together so that people know what we're talking about. Now, the wide range of stuff, but you seem to, well, first of all, you're acclaimed for doing this sort of thing. I mean, the Coke bottle and so on and so forth. But the trees, you said, almost stepped outside what you normally do.
Is that my comfort? Yeah,
I mean, how wide a range does the heart tell you to paint? Okay, you painted trees because of conservation. You paint this because of childhood memories?
Absolutely.
Right.
I was eating an ice cream one day, and I sort of stopped and looked at it. It was a fab. You know, the one with lots of dots on the top of it.
Oh, right.
So I sat there eating it on the beach, and I just looked at it and thought, I've got an idea. I like this ice cream. I'm going to paint it. So I thought, okay. And I was telling just a couple of friends, I said, I'm going to paint some ice creams. And one friend went, wow, that's really cool. And then the other one went, right, whatever floats your boat, Sarah. So I kind of was like, yeah, I thought, no, I'm going to do it. I'm seriously going to take this on board. And then lo and behold, you know, I did this ice cream thing. And as I said to you the other day, you know, the other week, when we were talking about the submissions, you know, it was on the second submissions, you know, to R5. And when they gladly took on Mr. Whip, the first two, it was the fab one, but I sold it. That was it. So that was going to be my first submission, but I put it on the portfolio as I submitted it. But I said to them I'd already sold it. But I included Mr. Whippy and you know, the Zoom, the rocket ice lolly with the yellow and green and no, red.
Do I remember? I most certainly do not. How old do you think I am?
25.
Keep going, keep rolling.
Go down.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go on.
That's all right. And so I sent this like 3 lots of art little paintings off. And when they said, in a few days later, they said, we want to take you on. I thought I was so overjoyed. I really was absolutely over the moon with it. So I thought, yeah, it must be a seller. It's got to be a seller.
Well,
so.
the funny thing is that I'm starting to understand what goes on inside you, because now we're starting to talk about ice creams. Over my life, you got a little barrel, a tub of it, and it had a piece of paper around. That was all. And Wall's ice cream, the first stuff that came out after the war.
Right.
And then they had a little metal thing, and they would lay the thing with wafers, right? And the thing shot up, and away you took it. And then the cone came in, but it was just a single cone. And then a double cone came in. And then now that's on a stick. I mean, I'm beginning to realize just what a range of artistic material there is in just a simple ice cream. Can you do the history of ice cream, do you think?
I don't see why not.
No, I don't either. It's a fascinating topic.
You could do like a whole series, couldn't you?
Yes.
On a long canvas, you could actually do a series where you're starting from day dot, whenever ice cream was invented, which is probably in America. Would you say it's American?
Well, ice cream probably did. Actually, to be quite honest with you. I think I don't know,
Mm.
but we've got to look into this. Ice cream probably did start in America,
Mm.
and I can remember when I was in Vancouver, I had these wild friends, and on the Sunday in British Columbia, no pubs open. So they would phone and they would say, "We're bored. Bring over some beer, and we'll all have a party." And we used to regularly have these parties, and I can remember great excitement amongst the children. And my daughter went out and she said, "Guess what? They've got an ice cream making machine."
Oh wow!
And you're far too young. But at one time, to wash clothes, they had what was called a dolly, and it was two handles and they pounded it up and down.
Wow.
Well, this machine looked just like that. And how it exactly worked, I don't know, but that's how it froze. So there are ice cream making machines which were used by the pioneers so yes, I'm pretty sure the Americans had a lot to do with early ice cream.
I think so, because imagine all the flavours they had. I mean, back in the 80s, when I was loving ice cream, I only remember strawberry, chocolate.
The 1880s,
vanilla.
you mean?
The 80s, as I was just growing up. Yeah. Cheers for that. But then when I was having this ice cream, I thought, and then you hear about Americans having pistachio, sherbet flavour, all these mad flavours, you know.
Yeah.
Millions of flavours,
There's a
strawberry
bacon and
sherbet.
egg ice cream, isn't there?
Oh, is that from Japan, no doubt?
Is it?
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I've never dared
I mean,
have
they're
it
very-
because my mind says ice cream shouldn't taste like bacon and egg, but there is
Oh,
one,
I can
yeah.
imagine one. Oh, that sounds disgusting. We're going to do the Marmite ice cream.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, some people think Marmite is disgusting, so perhaps you should do the egg and bacon ice cream.
So by Marmite on toast.
I'm finding these chats fascinating because as somebody who really isn't a great appreciator, I mean, of course, I'm like everybody. I have my favorite artists, but it doesn't have a wide range. But I'm beginning to understand now what drives artists to do different things, and it's fascinating why you do these sort of things. And I keep on coming up with these ideas, and I'm ready for you to say, "Don't be so damn silly! I can't do that," or "Why would I do that?" But this sort of thing is taking it back to your childhood or memories, not necessarily when you're a child. But I'm starting to see things in a different light.
Absolutely.
You've got to. You're teaching me. Wow.
I like to be a good teacher.
You are, because they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but here we are. This old dog is learning a couple of things. Now, what's on the stocks? What are you going to paint next, or what are you painting at the moment?
I'm just about to start a nice big banana split. It's going to stand 50 centimeters high by 100 by 50. I believe the size is.
No, you just went like that. How big is that? I still think you need inches and feet.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what that is in inches.
Yeah, it's quite big.
It's quite large.
Yeah,
Literally about, I remember the canvas being about this tall, from the ground, and then about this wide. So it's going to have a nice size, and it's going to have a nice lot of glaze on it from all the nice strawberry juice oozing over it and the ice cream.
Right.
So
Now,
it's large.
do you do that for photographs or memory or?
Photographs.
Photographs.
I take my own photos.
Yeah. So there aren't melting banana splits in your studio.
No, luckily.
I can't come along and scoff them while you're.
I'll be like, I can't paint this. That's disappeared. I know where it is.
Now, how long is that going to take you?
I'm predicting probably about, if I get the right time, the right balance of everything, I'm probably aiming another 3 weeks.
Oh, that's
Because this is
not bad.
quite technical here. But whereas with a Sunday, you can be a bit more freer.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But a banana split would have lots of colours. Did you have to think about that in terms of the paints that you use?
No, because what I do, I always look at the colours, really observe the colours before I actually mix them, just to give me ideas about what colour, what shade should I use, what shade of yellow, what shade of brown, blue, and then I start mixing. And then what I do, I mix ample, so there's loads on the palette, and away I go. I just go for it. And the other thing about these paintings, if you can imagine this sort of shape, I have to make sure that everything is central on that canvas.
Right.
So for all I know, I could start painting it, and it could be over here somewhere.
Right.
So half the battle is when I'm starting a painting, I have to sort of really be careful how I mask it out, just so I don't make that blunder, because it can easily happen.
That's fascinating. And when you hold that up, that's canvas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice stretch
Because
canvas.
you've cleverly made it look like a pizza box.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Well, no, I mean,
Do you
to
buy
me,
pizza?
since I don't eat pizza either, to me it looks like a pizza box. I thought that was rather clever.
I cheated. I bought it actually. If I had the time, I'd stretch my own. Definitely. Like, yeah.
It's delightful talking to you. And the
Thank
thing
you.
is that last week, I always prided myself as a broadcaster, as a young broadcaster, that I got a time clock and I know how long things are going. I said to Tony afterwards, well, that was stretching 15 minutes. He said, you've been talking for 25 minutes.
Really? You
Yeah, and I've got no idea now. I lose time in talking to you because I find this all new and interesting. So I have no idea whether we should be saying goodbye or hello or keeping it going. But I don't really care because it's fascinating, and this is a totally new way of looking at art to me. And I'm sure that there are lots of people out there who will say the same thing. I'm so glad that well, Tony discovered you, if you like. I'm so glad that you're coming in now on a weekly basis to have a chat. And of course, like everything else at Mirador, you get trapped into things. So you agreed to come on the odd morning show and co-host and laugh at the world with me. And in fact, we are also now talking about you doing some painting lessons for those people who would really like to get to grips with it.
That was just very basic ones. Just,
Yeah. Well, I think
Stretching
actually
paper
people
and-
like basic because there are so many people that if they're into art, it's very special to them. I think if you can bring a few more dozen people into the art world because of your teaching, so much the better. But
Absolutely.
anyway, it's a great delight to have you, and
you.
we
Nice
look
to
forward
see you.
to next week. And I'm looking forward to when we actually get the oysters. But do you actually have to paint the champagne with the oysters, or are the oysters good
I
enough on
could
their own?
superimpose, or I could actually take a photograph of both subjects. So I can do
I
whichever.
leave it to you.
Whichever it
There's
is.
no sense in me getting involved because if I get involved, by the time it's finished, it'll be so complicated. You'll say, "To hell with it."
We all gone.
Sarah, thank you for
very
coming
much,
in
Nice
again.
to see you.
Lovely chat and
Awesome.
really quite fascinating stuff. Stuff I've never heard before in all of my 21 years in the a bit more than that. We'll see you next week with Sarah. We haven't come up with a title for this program yet, so I can't say with, but what we will do is we'll maintain tradition and we'll say toodle pip.